Ready for some Bengals news? At the Growler, we got you. Hot takes, interviews from your host, Paul Dey Jr.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Dey Night. Paul Dey Jr. here with you. Cast of friends rolling with us tonight. Jay Morrison, Charlie Goldsmith. Mo is going to be checking in here in a little bit with us to get some of his thoughts on draft weekend. We've got the takes need to be spicy. It's Sunday night, boys. This is it's warm it up. People have been hanging out all day. It was a nice day. The grill was fired up. The barbecue was going. People have been having drinks. They've had spicy takes. We've got to live up to some pretty high expectations, I feel like.
I'm going to leave that to Charlie.
I was going to make did you guys hear the Bengals drafted a guy who only had 1.5 sacks last season?
I heard all about this. It was the talk of town. Okay, we're going to get to a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit. We've got a list of UDFAs. We'll talk a little bit about those guys. I always am hesitant to talk about UDFAs because you never know if there's going to be a failed physical or something weird's going to happen. So but we'll just go by what we have out there. Potential, if everything goes well, UDFAs and some of the thoughts on those guys. You know who's been picked. We'll offer some spicy takes on that. We'll talk about some encouraging and concerning developments, and kind of just empty. I just want to kind of open floor it, draft thoughts, and let's mix it up here and see where we end up, because I think everybody's got some. When you get another night to let it stew and figure out how you really feel, I think we could go a lot of different directions here. I do want to, before we get going too far though, we gotta talk about Tuesday night. It's going to be a great night. Super excited about it. We'll be down at Nation, BetMGM, down at the Banks. You know the place. You know the show. It is our post-draft live show, one of our favorites we do every year. Director of College Scouting, Mike Potts, is going to be at Nation hanging out with us, talking about all of these picks, talking about some of the biggest, developments on this team, on this roster, the debates that happen behind closed doors, what sold them on some of these guys. It's a great show, and we'll be hanging out afterwards. We're going to start at 5:00 on Tuesday down there. The Reds' first pitch is at 6:40. Graeters will be there hanging out. Our friends at Graeters are bringing some free Graeters down. $3 Busch Lights. You've got some wing deals, Charlie's Cookies. We're still working on the cookie ice cream, the Charlie's combo officially on that, but we'll be giving away some tickets to the first preseason game. It's going to be a big party. We're going to talk draft. We're going to hang out. And so we hope to see you guys down there. Charlie, are you popping over? How does that fall into your Reds pregame routine? Is that going to throw you off on your normal cruise through the press box dining room?
You know, the start time's perfect because it'll just after batting practice, I'll probably miss, the media dining, little dinner table we all have together. But, we got 81 games. And I'll be stopping right in. And my goal is, as I said the other day, to come in with one draft take from the Reds clubhouse to the show.
Love it. I mean, maybe you can get bring Lodolo with you or something. Somebody who's not going to be needed, right? Let's bring one of those guys over. Tell them to come over and say hi. If they have a spicy draft take, we welcome one and all.
In uniform. It'll be the new Tom Browning.
Yeah.
Lodolo has good TCU takes. He wouldn't be not as much of the NFL guy. A lot of the bullpen guys are the core, and they're a little more busy.
That's fair. Well, shoot, I don't see any TCU UDFAs for us to get Lodolo to weigh in on about. Maybe you can just talk generally about Texas football. You know what people from Texas love to do? Talk about Texas football.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. All right, let's do this. Before we get totally rolling, we can start with some of our spiciest takes. And you know what? When there's spicy takes, there's only, and then you just expect this. What just happened? I mentioned spicy takes, and the first thing that happened was Mo popped up. It was like a genie. Like if you say the word spicy take, all of a sudden, like Mo will just appear and have one. Let's pull Mo in here and bring him on. Mo, there you are.
Hi.
What's up, buddy? How are
we
you
doing? Oh man, I'm wonderful. How are you guys?
We're doing great. We got all the business out of the way, and we were just ready to start our take throwdown here. So I've been talking to Charlie all weekend. Jay and I have done a million shows together. I want to hear yours. I haven't heard a word of it. What's your number one sort of like primary take about the Bengals draft weekend?
Shemar Stewart was a good pick.
Okay. That's fair.
I don't know that that's that.
It might be a hot
take
at this point.
I don't know that that's. Yeah, I don't know. Like, so I said on the radio show on Friday that it felt underwhelming. Okay. But then I spent a lot of time this weekend with my hands on my hips, staring at the heavens going, how do I really feel about this? And every time I did, 39 and a half pressures popped into my head. And so I've spent the weekend trying to figure out, like, what do we do with those 39 pressures? You guys talked to Shemar Stewart. We were lucky enough to have him on the show. I thought he handled the question that I asked him about the 1.5 sacks very, very well. He was ready for it, and he went out of his way to mention, I had 39 and a half pressures. What do we do with 39 and a half pressures? We say he's good at applying pressure on quarterbacks. Now, I understand pressure is somewhat of a subjective stat, but still, 39 pressures. If that translates to the NFL, the sacks will come. Is he going to have 17 and a half like Trey Hendrickson? No. But I believe that if the ability to apply pressure translates to the NFL, he will be an asset to this defense, making him a good pick. I certainly do understand everybody focusing on the 1.5, right? But if the physical traits translate, and the Bengals clearly think they do, and the ability to apply pressure to quarterbacks translates, then this is going to end up being a pretty good pick regardless of what the sack total. He can't have 1.5 sacks. But again, like, that to me is such a statistical anomaly. 39 and a half sacks and only got there 1.5 times. Is that all on him? A lot of it is, I'm sure. But is that going to, I don't know what 39 in college and then, first season in the NFL. I don't know how many pressures we're looking for before we go, it carried over. But if he applies a commensurate number of pressures, the sacks will come. And so will the opposing quarterback mistakes. So I'm in. I've talked myself into it. Good pick. 17 overall. Shemar Stewart. Let's go.
I mean, what would be interesting, and I might do this, is go back and look and see how many of those 39 pressures were on third down. Because how many times have we had defensive coaches, head coaches, even players tell us that, not that sacks are overrated, but as long as you affect the quarterback, that's what you need to do. And sacks, yes, they're great if it's on first or second down because you make it harder for the team on third down, or the next down, whatever it is. But if you get a pressure on a quarterback on third down and make him throw incomplete or make him check down, then what really is the difference if they're punting on 4th and 10 or 4th and 15? A pressure on third down is almost as good as a sack. Now, obviously, sacks are better on first and second down. So it would be interesting to see there, how often he's getting to the quarterback and affecting the quarterback on third downs. And you're right, you can't have 1.5 sacks as a first-round pick. No. But I do think sacks are sometimes a little overrated.
Well, that's a nice little summertime project for you, Jay.
I'm going to do it this week.
But I wonder the same thing. Like, I wonder how many of those pressures might have turned into a quarterback throwing the ball away, right? Mm-hmm. And now the punting team has to come out. How many of those pressures may have resulted in a pick? How many of those pressures may have resulted in he doesn't make the play, but he buys some time for someone else? So, like, I envision him best case being added to a pass rush that still today includes Trey Hendrickson. There was no draft day trade, so Trey is still here. I envision Shemar Stewart, if he works out, being a part of a defense that as a whole gets after the quarterback better. That obviously puts a lot on Joseph Ossai. And I understand the skepticism there about him, and it puts a lot of pressure on Miles Murphy. And I certainly understand everybody's skepticism as it relates to him. But that one thing, the pressure, if that translates to the NFL, and look, NFL quarterbacks get rid of the ball more quickly, they're more elusive. Like there's, it remains to be seen. But if that one thing that he did really, 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 really well at Texas A&M translates to the next level, A, the sacks will come for him. B, the sacks will come for his teammates. And C, I saw somebody among the millions of analysts I've seen weigh in on this on Friday afternoon. Someone said, disruptions are production. I don't recall who said that, but it was probably somebody profound. Disruptions are production. If he's disruptive at the next level, this defense will benefit from it. And so I am going to assume that with immensely impressive physical traits, a well-established ability to mount pressures, that this is going to end up being a pretty good pick.
One of my big takeaways from this offseason as a whole is that this coaching staff and front office just really values pressures. Like if we're looking at things they value, they just value pressures. I remember back to a conversation with Zach in 2022 after Hendrickson was named a Pro Bowler and his sacks were down last year. And Zach went to bat for how many pressures Hendrickson had. That was a defense that as a whole got like no sacks, even though it was statistically the best passing defense in the entire NFL, the way it affected quarterbacks. So that's a part of it. The way they've doubled down on Miles Murphy, the Shemar Stewart pick as a whole. We've been reminded over and over again, valuing pressures. Again, maybe even you can make a case like, are all sacks created equally? Were all the sacks the Bengals got in that home game against the Browns really earning it? No, those were kind of fool's gold. The Bengals are betting on pressures being something they specifically value. And again, that goes past Shemar Stewart, that goes with Murphy, that goes with Hendrickson in the past, that goes a lot of different areas across the roster.
I mean, here's my thing. We've yelled it how many times on this show, Jay? I mean, Dave, for feels like a decade. I mean, sacks are overrated stat in general. And that we talked about this the other day. The fact that the college game is so different in the way it's being played, and that you get to the point where production it sometimes feels irrelevant, because of just the nature of how between the quick game and the glance routes and the RPOs and everything, where there's the true pass sets, which, we talk about that all the time when we quote PFF, right? Oh, well, how was he in true pass sets? Those don't even happen half the time in college football. Yeah. And so you really have to bet on traits, and you can't get obsessed with sacks. You do need disruption. You do need pressures, and you don't need, if you're going to build like the Eagles, okay? If you're going to build like the Rams, like they did, you build with waves. You build with everybody having high win rates, being high pressure producers, because then the quarterback is running into people's sacks and everybody eats. That's the best type of pass rush. You can have, the best sack artist in football and still be a terrible pass rushing team. That's what the Bengals were. And you know what everybody but Trey Hendrickson sucked at last year? Getting any pressure. So bring in somebody that can, and I don't have a huge problem with that being one of the primary things that you're hanging your hat on and hoping that you can, like they said, and it's going to be a big deal this year, teach finishing.
But the flip side of this, the flip side of this is what's even better than pressures, more even valuable than pressures, interior pressures. Quickest way to the quarterback, something the Bengals completely didn't address this offseason.
Yeah, no question. You know who's telling you that sacks are overrated? The Cincinnati Bengals. Because they're not paying the reigning NFL sack leader. Right? I mean, to a degree, there are, I think, legitimate reasons why they're not, but they're kind of telling you, like, can you come up with any other statistical categories where if they had the reigning leader in that major category, they would go, we're kind of willing to let you walk. Like, if Joe Burrow at age 31 leads the league in touchdown passes, I promise you they're going to do everything they can to keep him. I know it's positional value. It's not apples to apples, but they're kind of telling you sacks are overrated. By the way, when the Bengals acquired Trey Hendrickson, what did a lot of skeptics say? They wanted to contextualize his sacks. My colleague, Tony Pike, did this. where he's like, well, you know what? This sack came on 3rd and 19, So, I mean, like, there are some sack compilers. That's not to say that Trey hasn't been awesome, because he's, I think, the greatest free agent acquisition they've ever had. But you can see somebody who has a lot of sacks, and it's like, yeah, he had a sack and a half, and the first time it was 3rd and 18, obvious passing down, great coverage down the field, and he got to the quarterback. Yeah, big whoop, no big deal. They were going to punt anyway. And then he stumbled into a half a sack because he was standing there and the other edge rusher pushed him into him, and so half a sack. Like, the 39 pressures, I don't know, man. I have spent a lot of time since Friday doing two things. One, trying to figure out what to do with the 39 pressures, and trying to, I don't know, convince myself that should matter more than the 1.5 sacks. And again, if in his rookie season he has 1.5 sacks, we're all going to laugh at him, or at least I'm going to laugh at him. But the other thing is, and I spent some time on our radio show on Thursday saying this, like, no matter who they take, we're gonna come up with a reason to not like it. If it's Jihad Campbell and he's the guy, then we're going to talk about, yeah, but is he going to play week 1 with that labrum issue? Or if it's a player, some like Donovan Ezeraku, he was mocked to them. Well, uber productive guy, but like, is he big enough? Is he fast enough? Does he have the twitch needed? Which I'm not even sure what that means. But like, you will read, yeah, the traits really aren't there, even if the production was. There was, or if it was Mike Green, who obviously slid past round 1. Well, yeah, but small school. Like, no matter who they took, you could come up with a legitimate reason, but still a reason to not like it. So I kind of feel like whoever they took, it was going to be almost destined to fail in the court of immediate public opinion. And the Bengals, as a result, with no matter who they took at 17 overall, were destined to fail in the court of immediate public opinion. I don't know if that's the right way to do this. I don't know if this is the right way to go, okay, no matter who they take, look, there's a reason the guy's not a top 10 pick. There's a reason why the guy didn't go in the top 5. He's there at 17. There's probably some built-in flaw. Is it fair to them and to the individual players to instantly default to that? Because I think we were going to do that no matter who they took. I hope that made sense.
And one thing, too, I was looking at his pressures, and he had one game last year where he had more than 12 pass rushes and not at least 2 pressures. So it wasn't like he was beating up on bad teams and then disappearing against good teams. It was consistent pressure, game in and game out. He was getting back there and affecting the quarterback. And I think that comes in a lot too. It's not really a knock on Trey, but you did see Trey, he got his sacks in bunches. He would get 3 in a game sometimes, and it'd be late in the game when they've got a lead and he's just pinning his ears back, or it would be against teams that weren't that good. And so I think that's an important element to look at when you look at Shemar too, where he is consistently from game to game a guy that affects the quarterback.
So I'm in. That's my take. I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy, because the way this works out is everybody instantly hates it, and then there's the counter to it. But I feel like on Friday, at every workplace in Cincinnati, people were like, dude, we drafted a guy with 1.5 sacks.
Yeah.
And I admit I did that. I did that, and I did that publicly, but I was almost like when he's like, dude, I had 39 pressures. I led my team in pressures every year. It's like, yeah, you did. And I did. And I don't know that we should be dismissing that the way we are. So I'm now Team Shemar Stewart. Great pick.
Which brings me to the way you look at this. Which brings me to the way you look at this entire draft. Are you drafting someone who has the potential to be the most impactful player who is available to you, or are you doing what the Bengals didn't, and that's drafting for need? And like where we're going to end up is it's going to be January, and either Shemar Stewart will have like 2 sacks against the Bills, and it'll be the right pick for 2025, or the Bills will beat the Bengals because they pick on Josh Allen picks on whatever safety, or because there's no interior pass rush, or because Dylan Fairchild's just not quite ready. And then we can ask the question then too, was this the right pick? Even if Shemar was, say, the best player on their board because of how separate he was from bigger positions of need that could sink the Bengals season in 2025, it underscores this is just a reset for the whole defense as opposed to a have to fill certain spot to give you the best insurance case in January.
Yeah, I think that's really I want to say this about Shemar Stewart to wrap this up, and that is I care about what Shemar Stewart looks like in December and January. I think it's going to be really important to understand the time this is going to take, and that this pick is kind of made with January in mind, to be honest. I mean, it is give this guy a year where you can work with him, get him going in a rotation. You're obviously hoping that it's one behind or with Trey Hendrickson involved. And when injuries happen and maybe he has to step in, or you start developing a package that becomes a real weapon for you, and you're playing these teams and it's January and you've got this dude who's an absolute athletic freak screaming off the edge, giving you some extra juice that you've been missing, it becomes he can then affect 2025. To me, I don't see a lot of ways where he's going to necessarily totally affect 2025 other than that. Like, give me the postseason run coming out party from him that can be a big part of this. I want to Mo, that I do want to talk about the concerning, the other side of what they haven't done. Because I think, Charlie, you touched on this, and I think this is a good jumping off point for us. The Bengals did not address what I would have said day one of this offseason was their biggest need. And that was an interior pass rusher, a game-wrecking 3 technique type some semblance of that. How are we sitting here today? Like, how are we sitting here today after free agency and a draft and a deep draft for defensive line and everything else, and they still don't have one? Yeah. To me, that is stunning. And I'm here to listen to all of we're going to kick some of these defensive ends in, and that's going to be part. I like that. I'm not against that. I also want to rush the passer on first and second down from the interior. It's like the biggest thing they were missing, and somehow they've just pushed it off, and it hasn't mattered. Are you as concerned about that, Mo, as I am? Is it keeping you up at night?
It takes a lot to keep me up at night. But I have thought about it a lot. I have. I mean, it's remarkable if we would have had this conversation, the four of us, the day after the season ended, as we're outlining the offseason to-do list, if any one of us would have said, all right, at the 3 technique, they're going to sign one guy in free agency, TJ Slayton, and that's it. The other 3 would have laughed at the one dude, right? Pointed and laughed. You're out of your mind. And yet that's where we are, which leads me to my second hottest take. Are you ready?
Ooh, another one.
Yeah.
Double.
Al Golden is the most important assistant coach hire in the history of the franchise. I don't recall them ever doing this with a coordinator.
Yep.
All right, man. Welcome to the team. We're going to give you some guys, but we're going to give you a whole lot of guys who were here last year for the awful defense we had. And we're not really going to address this one major position of need. Also, we'd like to win the Super Bowl this year. Go get it, buddy.
Also, your 2 most important pass rushers are total projects that you have to fix.
Right. I mean, I feel like they're everything they've done in terms of building the 2025 team on the defensive side of the ball has been this like, well, they're putting it on Al Golden. I've been a fan of this team for 40 plus years. I cannot ever recall a time where they were like, they elevated Hugh Jackson, offensive coordinator, and there was just like, yeah, maybe Hugh can get a little bit more out of Andy, which he did. But I can't recall anything like this. Hey, this position group stunk. It had obvious needs, obvious issues. We're not really going to fix them. But can you go build a Super Bowl caliber defense? Granted, with Joe Burrow, Super Bowl caliber defense is not exactly the 85 Bears, but they've never done this. I can't recall a time where they are putting a lot on him. I hope it works, man, but you're asking a lot of him in a very short amount of time.
I remember it wasn't the immediacy and it wasn't Super Bowl dreams or they weren't on the cusp of it, but think back to 2011. Jay Gruden, okay, here's a rookie quarterback, here's a rookie wide receiver, here's a rookie guard that you're going to start, and okay, make it work.
In a lockout year.
In a lockout year, yeah. And Carson leaves, and Jay had never been an offensive coordinator in the league. That was similar, but it wasn't the win right now. I mean, they did go to the playoffs that year, but it didn't have that. You're right, it didn't have that same feel that it does right now, where so much of this is sitting on Al's shoulders.
Let me read some names. Free agents who the Bengals didn't sign: Javon Hargrave, Levi Onwuzurike, Jaron Reed, Tershawn Wharton, Jonathan Allen, Grady Jarrett, Calais Campbell, Adam Butler, Sebastian Joseph Day, Javon Kinlaw, Mario Edwards, Solomon Thomas. All would have been better than what the Bengals had. In the draft, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan goes one pick before them, TJ Sanders, Josh Farmer, TJ Robinson, Omar Narman-Lott, Aeneas Peebles, Vernon Broughton, CJ West, JJ Pegues, Riley Mills. You get 0 of these guys. The only guy you get is undrafted free agent Howard Cross, who I think if Al thought that Howard Cross was going to have 3 sacks this season, the Bengals would have drafted him out of Notre Dame. Brings me back to the guy who none of us are talking enough about. One of the most guaranteed money towards any defensive lineman in free agency around the league this past season was BJ Hill, a guy who I saw his pass rush take a step back over the course of 2024, but the Bengals are betting on being the pass rusher he was in 2021. The other big winner is Cam Sample, who now you have Al Golden mentioning his name as one of this team's best interior pass rushers. Now, that type of plan is like, I don't know, the Reds entering the year with 2021 Alex Blandino is their shortstop. Like, it's not where you want to be, but this is where they've been at because of the investments they've made and where they've ignored prioritizing this defense.
I mean, at this point, you almost have to say, okay, I'm under the assumption that Joseph Osai and Shemar Stewart or Miles Murphy, whoever they choose to kick inside, is going to be on the field every third down at defensive tackle. Right? Or that's not 3rd and 2 at this point. I mean, they're built to handle that. That's the way you get them on the field. And I don't understand how this strategy plays out this way. If there isn't a schematic twist, and that's why I was intrigued by hearing that from both Zach and Al this weekend, because that's the only way you even start to explain away this type of roster management, of not having anything when that was so clearly something that they were missing coming into this offseason.
Well, and what I can't help but wonder is they took Demetrius Knight in round 2. And then I think, was it 26 picks were made before another linebacker was taken? So I can't help but wonder, could they have maybe gotten him in round 3 or the next linebacker who was taken after him in round 3 and either drafted a guard, Tate Ratledge, or addressed defensive tackle there? I'm probably overthinking this a little bit. I did, Paul, think of you when I was watching the draft on Friday night and Demetrius Knight's name came up, and the very first thing that one of the analysts said was run fit. So I know I know you're always looking for people who are good at providing some run fit. But when they made that pick, I just was kind of curious because I looked at Dane Brugler's guide and he had him as a 3rd or 4th round pick. That doesn't mean he's not going to be an excellent player. There's a part of me that likes the fact they drafted a 25-year-old man. So, like, come in and help out immediately. But I thought, all right, let's see what happens at linebacker. And then only one more was taken before the 4th round. So could he have been there or the next linebacker? Could they have traded down? Could they have gotten an extra pick, still gotten Demetrius Knight, and then use that extra pick on a defensive tackle? Maybe, although if you follow their pattern this offseason, they seem to not think the defensive tackle is a huge problem. So maybe they wouldn't have used that pick on that position anyway. But that's kind of where my brain went as the rest of Friday and the early rounds yesterday unfolded.
You're right. I mean, the answer to that question is maybe, and they weren't willing to take that chance. That they liked him that much for what he is as a player and for how he fits what they want to do. And so we've talked about this on some of the walkouts after the draft, and I think that was the main reason where they were so high on Knight. They weren't willing to take that gamble that he would still be there in the 3rd round. So I don't have a big problem. He's actually my favorite pick in this draft that they made. I think he's going to be terrific. And going back to what Paul was saying about the defensive tackles, I wonder how much of this is not so much faith that they have in the defensive tackles on the roster, how much of this is about the faith they have in this offense to build leads, play from the lead in the second half, and then you don't have to wait till 3rd down to kick those guys in there. You can go with that NASCAR 3rd down package on first, second, and third down because teams are going to be in throw-only mode at that point. Obviously, I don't know that that's what their thought process was, but I do wonder if that kind of is in the back of their mind where we've got everything we want on offense, and we expect if this defense is marginally better this year in the first half of games, we're going to have leads and we're going to have a chance to put teams away in the second half. We're going to have a chance to put them in pass-only mode, and we can kick some of these guys inside and let them rush on first, second down.
Mo, any parting words before you exit the show here? Anything you'd like to impart on us, some wisdom to end your reign?
When Cincinnati played Texas Tech, UC played Texas Tech in Lubbock this year, I had the very distinct honor of filling in for Dan Hort on that game because the Bengals played in Carolina. And it was a 1:00 game. The UC Texas Tech game was at night, and Dan did not want to risk not being able to call the Bengals game, so I got thrown to the Wolves and had to call a Big 12 football game. The Bearcats did not win. They missed a field goal late. It was a great game, 44-41. My call of the game was at best forgettable, and that's at best. That's at very, very, very best.
I listened to this game. Fun fact.
Why?
Well, I was
so you could sit there and make fun of me. Like
I was in Carolina. We were out at
Okay.
dinner, and then in the Uber back, getting back to my hotel was during the fourth quarter while all the shenanigans were going on. And in the
Right.
20-minute Uber ride, I fired up the iHeartRadio app.
Well, thank you for not critiquing my play-by-play. But during that broadcast, that game, Taj Boyd ran 32 times for 172 yards. And I remember two remarks I made during that broadcast. And I'm not going to turn on my sportscaster voice, but the first one I said was, at some point he went over the 150-yard mark, and I said if I didn't have the stat monitor in front of me, I would think he was over 200 yards. Number two, I said in my infinite brief play-by-play broadcaster wisdom, I said Taj Boyd is going to make an NFL team very happy next year. Well, here we are.
Here you are.
6th-rounder, my guy. Guy carried it 32 times that night. Absolute old-school performance. Cincinnati, UC had no answer for him. He was really fun to watch. He was awesome. They didn't exactly reinvent the wheel. They kind of just lined up and ran him at him. And you talk about I would have thought maybe he carried it 40 times. He never wore down. I don't know what his chances of making the team are. That running back room is really, really interesting to me. But like that night, I thought that's a dude. I would look at him if I was running an NFL team. I would want that guy because he's a physical runner. He can go between the tackles, and the dude just looks like he wants the ball all the time. So that's my favorite pick because I said he would make an NFL team happy, and I want to prove to be right.
You will be because he's making the team. And that's very good news. I mean, he is he's a fun watch. He's a different type of running back than they have, and I think he'll be a nice compliment to Chase Brown. And who knows, maybe more. I mean, Jay and I were talking about this. It's like you would thought in the past the Bengals thing was taking guys that weren't used as much, so they had a little more juice when they got to the league. Well, they didn't need that with Chase Brown, who was a workhorse, and they went the same way with Taj Boyd, who was a workhorse for the last 2 years for Tech, over 1,500 yards both seasons, 27 touchdowns the last 2 years. Like, this is a dude that has taken the ball and proven it at that level. And so I think you love what he's going to bring. I'm with you. I think it's a great pick. Mo, I appreciate your time. Happy Sunday night. Thanks for popping in with us. And I will be talking to you on Tuesday.
We will talk on Tuesday. I can't wait. Gentlemen, this is elite company now. So I'm honored to have been a part of this. This is fun.
Are you
Thanks.
going right to have a cigar now, or have you already done that?
Do you want to know what I've been doing all day today?
I don't know that I do. I shouldn't have asked this.
I've
I was
been
trying to get you out of here.
No, I've been at Kings Island all day.
Yeah.
Right?
You did what?
I was at Kings Island today with friends of ours that have 3 kids, 4 kids at Kings Island. And, Paul, especially, the only thing I wanted to do today was watch the New York Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
So, which the referees helped us. So, I might have 2 cigars. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I will say to any parents out there, the biggest mistake you can make when you go into kiddie world, if you go in there with kids, do not ever let them look up or talk about going on that stupid helicopter thing that goes above everything.
That is the worst.
Dude, it is such bait. You walk in, it's the first thing you see.
Yeah.
It's up top. It's a terrible, boring ride, which
Awful.
I don't care about. Like, there's lots of terrible,
You
boring
could take a
rides there.
nap in that thing.
The line
It's a
is
terrible
so
wait.
long and it goes so slow, but the kids see it and you feel like you're letting them down if you don't take them on the first thing. I want to go on it. No, go get a coaster or the Beastie or the other rides in front of them quickly and get their attention away from that thing. It will absolutely ruin your entire day if you end up on that or in that line. Do not do it. Do not do it by any.
So really quick, because you guys have the all-important NFL draft to talk about. This was our first year riding big rides, and it took some cajoling. I mean, it even, like, from the other kids, took some shaming. And as a parent, like, I hate shaming. I do not like shaming people, but there was legitimate peer pressure by the other kids to get mine to, man up, so to speak, even though she's a girl, and ride the big kid rides. And she did, and now she's hooked. So
she's hooked. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
This reminds me of the favorite nugget I've ever unearthed, which was to get better at pass protection heading into 2022. Chris Evans would regularly go to Kings Island to ride the drop tower because he felt like it would build some thicker skin, but unfortunately that plan did not work.
What? I don't know why Chris Evans didn't work out, guys. With strategy like this.
So his prep for the NFL involved going to an amusement park and riding a ride,
making himself uncomfortable.
There was more.
Yeah.
He would do cold showers. He let a police dog in. Like they went to the police station to support the police, and there was like an attack session with a police dog, and he volunteered to be the one who wore the suit. And it was with the team, but he volunteered to be the one that stepped up. He did all kinds of stuff.
Everybody else is out. They're doing MMA. They're doing sparring. Like maybe working with an actual line coach. No, he's like, what if I just go to Kings Island? Won't that do it?
Yeah.
I see no problems here. Mo, get out of here. Enjoy a couple cigars.
Thanks for having me, guys. See ya.
All right, we'll see you.
See ya.
All right, Mo Egger, ESPN 1530. I'll be on with him on Tuesday before we have our live show down at BetMGM and Nation Kitchen and Bar. Will be a fun day. All right, Charlie, do you have a spicy take for me before we talk a little bit of UDFA and then jump into the chat here? If you guys have questions, anything that you want us to talk about, drop something in there, and we'll do a little bit of a speed round on some of your guys' questions or thoughts over here once we get a couple more things out. What else you got, Charlie?
I think my biggest miss from a projection standpoint is I thought this was going to be the fix the defense draft. It turned out just being the reset the defense draft. When you look at someone in Shemar Stewart who like you mentioned, has a lot of projection to go between now and January at less of a position of need. When you looked at the 2020 comparison, when you looked at the intangible factor, they could have just gotten a defensive tackle and a safety somewhere over the course of these days and said, all right, if all these guys hit, we fix the defense. But it wasn't that. It was honestly maybe even more of an admission that there's room to grow, just like the defense had in 2020 before it was playoff Super Bowl leading caliber. So again, it wasn't a 3 easy steps. It was they're kind of taking the long route, just like they did the last time.
Guess if I had one, it would be more of a prediction than a take. But how about Geno Stone will be a top 12 safety by PFF grade this year?
Wow.
That's out. That's good job. Good job.
Sunday night.
I mean,
the Heat.
So think about it. I mean, they were not blind to his season last year, and they didn't do. They see something either in the way he finished the year or the way he fits into Al's scheme that they felt comfortable not to draft a safety. There's something there that they like, and he is a pro. He's been in the league for a while. He wasn't happy with his season. I'm sure he's doing everything possible to get better. And I don't know he's ever going to be a great tackler, but if you can get him back to the 2023 Geno where he's a ball hawk, and again you're playing from ahead and you're forcing the team to throw a lot, I could see him making this pay off, where that they did not take a safety in this draft.
I think the Geno Stone storyline has been really interesting to see. What was it? I got to tell you, I was really taken by the way your DB's tackle is the soul of your defense line out. Like when I heard that you said that, I was like, you know what? That really that really makes my heart go pitter patter. I love that. That's poetic. It's emphatic. Other icks. I'm all about it. And now I'm sitting here saying, how do these two things balance themselves? Like how does it work that you landed with the, you know what? Good with it. And I was looking up, because I have a little bit in my piece for tomorrow on them backing Geno Stone, and he's 62nd out of 66 qualifying safeties in missed tackle rate last year. He had 17 of them. We saw it over and over and over again, and it's not like that was an anomaly year. Like, you knew that as his thing coming into this. It was, if you're taking Geno Stone, you're going to deal with, he's not as athletically gifted as some others, and he's going to miss some tackles for you. And it really haunted him. And so to see nothing, I mean, again, nothing, no additions happen back there at all in any of the secondary at all. That was surprising to see. That obviously there's something there that they feel, that they see that the rest of us don't, or maybe they believe that he has said, that sold them, because it's surprising that we've landed to this space.
To me, what this feels like is the tight end 2023 ended up being Irv Smith and nothing else kind of situation, where it was just like missed opportunities that didn't click, that lead to rolling with a guy who I just don't think it was a certainty that Geno Stone, specifically with no competition, was going to be the Bengals starting free safety in 2025. When you look at how, more than, and I thought, any other position on defense, the safety market really skyrocketed in free agency. For example, look how much Cam Bynum got paid. The draft could have shaken out in a way where, what if Stewart's gone, Stark or Eamon, and then especially Starks, I think would have made a lot of sense from every side when you look at the potential to add a guy who in that case would have been a day one starter. Clearly they said thank you, but no thank you to Xavier Watts. They didn't view him as a fit. And so that kind of took him off the board. Kevin Winston was a guy coming off a torn ACL, so that likely moved him down the board. And then Billy Bowman went one pick right before Barrett Carter. So those are their opportunities to get a safety who would compete for or even be in the mix kind of along with Geno Stone. The offseason didn't play out that way, and now Geno Stone has as much to prove as I think anyone on the Bengals defense compared to expectations coming off last season.
I just looked on Sport Radar week by week. Geno Stone missed tackle. He had 15 missed tackles, according to them, over the course of the season. Last 7 weeks, he had 4. I mean, he did get better as the year went on, as they simplified that defense. So I think the fact that he was moving in the right direction and what they see he can be in Al's system, yeah. Top 12. That's not that hard, is it?
He has something. I keep going back to week 17, man. You got to make the 2 plays, the Hail Mary and then the deep ball way over the top from Bo Nix. That was end of the season. I said when that ball was in the air, this is what they brought you to do, Geno, because the ball was in the air for so long and he didn't make the play. Like, I keep going back to that. But again, he's not the biggest weakness on the defense. So you say you have that.
I am buying the defensive reconstruction. I do think I don't see them finishing in the bottom 10 again. I don't. I think that they'll be, I think they'll be in the middle. I really do. Like I think it was probably overrated. Not overrated. It's overemphasized right now how bad they were during the year. Because it is true, though, when they did just cut the BS and just go out there and know what these guys know what they're doing and play the most simplistic version of defense, they were better. The offenses were bad. But, when you look at the difference, to me was always Pittsburgh 1 versus Pittsburgh 2. Like they were so different against the same team and playing with so much more confidence. The ones in the middle, like, I'm not going to give you credit for what you did to Dorian Thompson-Robinson or to Will Levis I mean that. Like, Geno Stone had 3 consecutive games with interceptions, and I don't think I want to even count any of them. You know what I mean? It's like you want to see it against the real teams, because the real teams are the ones that beat them up. But I don't think that I don't see, barring obviously catastrophic injury type stuff, them being it's just almost impossible to be as lost and totally inept for long stretches. I've just never seen anything like a team that got down on itself and just wilted once things started going sideways. You know, the 4 consecutive touchdown drives against that we saw happen, like not just in one game, like in like 3 or 4 different games. It would happen over and over again. That team had no sense of self, no sense of fight. And I think you've heard that in the way that they have talked about this offseason, the way they have drafted the types of players they've brought in. And that's why I think the character stuff and the right types of guys to have out there is a big part of their strategy, because they saw the same thing we all did. They had some guys that quit and it didn't matter to them enough. And they didn't have enough good players. And then there was a disconnect between Lou and the young players, and all hell broke loose. But I think it's like, get everybody on the same page, get them playing hard, put the right people in here that'll fight, and you can get to average with just that. Even if you're not as competitive from a talent perspective, you can get to average just with that. And I think that they're positioned to do that now. I like the way that they have done that part.
Agree.
Sure.
UDFAs. Let's UDFAs real quick. Anything from the here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run down the UDFAs, and I am going to drop in here Dane's ranking from the Beast for every UDFA. Again, these are the ones that I have listed here. Things happen. I'm just going to say that. I don't want this to be held against me if something happens. Quarterback Peyton Thorne, Auburn. It was his quarterback 18, had him listed as a free agent, expected free agent. Quali Conley from Arizona was running back 54. We should have had Mo give us a scouting report on Jamoy Mays from Cincinnati. Dane had him as wide receiver 216. That seems high. That seems like a really large.
I didn't know there were that many
216 receivers. Not sure about that one. Jordan Moore from Duke, wide receiver 73, had him listed as a free agent expectation. Rashad Owens from Oklahoma State, wide receiver 71, had him listed as a free agent expectation. Tight end Cole Taylor, West Virginia, had him
Big
listed
guy.
as tight end 60, free agent expectation. The big one here on this list, center Seth McLaughlin, Ohio State, center 3. According to Dane, 3rd, 4th round grade, but it was noted in there the medicals were going to be the big telling thing there. So you have to assume there's some kind that's going to be the thing that they're hoping to keep him around, and that the medicals work out in whatever way there. We can circle back to anybody you want to. I want to finish the list. Tackle Caleb Etienne from BYU. He had him as tackle 23. He looks like a Bengal tackle. He's 6'7", 330 pounds, because that's what you have to be here. He had listed as a free agent grade. Defensive tackle Eric Gregory, Arkansas. He had him as defensive tackle 30, a 6th, 7th round grade. Defensive tackle Howard Cross, Notre Dame. You mentioned him earlier. Had him as defensive tackle 34 with a 7th round grade. Braylon Lux, Texas Tech, corner, free agent. Shaquan Loyal, Rutgers, safety, free agent. And then the big one, boys, the one that will have the most repercussions on the roster, long snapper William Wagner, Michigan, rated as long snapper 1, according to the Beast, Cal Adamitis. Hey, bring in some competition. Cal was not perfect last year. And the operation was part of the reason for some of Evan McPherson's struggles, according to those who are responsible for Evan McPherson's struggles. And so when you look at it that way, not surprised to see long snapper 1. I'm not sure how you judge. I give Dane so much credit. He's the most thorough in our business. I want to hear his strategy for rating long snapper 1 over other long snappers.
I have no idea how
I'm
you do
looking
that.
up. I'm looking up something very important right now. Was William Wagner the snapper to Brad Robbins? Yes, he was.
He was. Wow. Bring back Brad? Is that what we're thinking?
Or was
maybe
it like
Brad,
a Jamar?
maybe Brad said that you're not going to believe this. Like, I know you guys brought in Cal.
That's what I'm
Just
saying.
wait for my guy Will to get in here, and we will have it rocking. And Darren pocketed that information and cut Brad Robbins.
What was Duke's favorite question? What college teammate would you bring with you if you're trying to win?
Yeah.
Will
William Wagner.
long snapper.
How many
Go ahead,
how many
Jay.
UDFAs on your list? That list you have.
I don't know. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 on here.
Okay. 'Cause I thought they only had room for 12. I had seen a list with 11, so I thought that
Well,
was unique that
Jay,
they had. I know.
they do.
It's
91 would be the right number to be at right now, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
number 57. I'm actually surprised. I'm actually surprised that they didn't give Demetrius Knight 57.
Didn't one of these guys have international pathway? I think I saw that on Twitter.
international pathway?
I think I saw on Twitter that
Possibly.
someone did.
That sounds.
I might be wrong. I haven't gone down that
believe
rabbit
It's
hole.
very, but yeah, I have not gone down to the international pathway route yet. I've done a lot this weekend, but I haven't made it to that point yet. I
Bring
believe
back
you.
Mobo.
Bring not for everybody, Jay.
No, it's
NFL's not for everybody. Okay. What do we think? What are we thinking about this list? Anything for you guys?
I'll start with Gregory. I think just because of his body type and the run versus pass priority that the Bengals have set, he's a guy who fits in clear as depth. I'm also going to go off board here, not undrafted free agent, but basically an undrafted free agent. I think there is a roster spot for Kendrick Pryor or Cole Burgess, and I think that will be the camp battle that we talk about all preseason, them versus Isaiah Williams. That's my tangential undrafted free agent related prediction.
Yeah, I think the McLaughlin pick from Ohio State is an interesting one and a smart one. It's unless they extend Ted again, he's going into the final year of his career or of his contract, and you want to start building some depth there. I know they took Matt Lee last year, but he was a 7th round pick, and you fortified the other positions on that offensive line. I don't know, if something were to happen to Matt Lee, who would be the emergency center at this point. So I think that's an interesting pick, kind of a red shirt signing where you can let him. Who was it? There was a couple years ago they drafted. No, it was an injured center. I think he was from Mississippi, and he was projected as a 4th round pick. Ben Brown, yes, and he's still in the league and he's playing. They ended up cutting him. I think he landed in Seattle.
Wasn't he playing for Scott Peters last year?
Yeah,
Wasn't he?
he
Didn't
was.
he end up on the Patriots?
Yes, he was.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. It was opening day, and we were like,
Oh,
I think
that's
Charlie,
right.
you came and you're like, guess who's on this roster? Ben Brown. He was playing. Oh, unbelievable. All right. I think the fact that the 2 guys that Dane had graded here with draftable grades are defensive tackles tells you that what we all have been talking about is that they were thinking the same thing of like, how did we not come away with a defensive tackle? Let's make sure. Let's hunt. Whatever. We need to get the best undrafted free agent defensive tackles this draft has offered. And I do like, you know what? Al Golden going in on Howard Cross, like nobody should know better than him. And if you think there's value there, I like being like, okay, maybe that's your insider knowledge that you get from Al in this draft. All right, let's try to lightning round a few questions here. I've got a few that I pulled out. Let's start with this one from Mr. Bengals fan. Is Jay wearing pants? That's a great place to start. Mr. Bengals fan wants to know, Jay, are you wearing pants? Can you confirm?
I am. I'm not going to stay. I'm wearing shorts. How about that? They're not pants, but so if I get this right, that would be 1, 2, 3 consecutive podcasts with pants.
Hey, way to go. It's the streak. We're going to do it like the struggle for the steak that they, you know what I mean? That used to have with Dan and Chuck. It's going to be like that marks 722 consecutive podcasts while wearing pants for Jay. So people who didn't see the other day are very, very confused as what's going on.
Concerned.
Jay admitted he wasn't wearing pants the other day, in case you're wondering. All right. Here, let's go. Let's bring this one in here. If a dude would have been a great pick around later, what actual difference in production do you think that manifests? I think this was about sort of the Demetrius Knight, Dylan Fairchild, and what is that? What do you think the Bengals lost by not taking the risk on Knight? I would argue, I think they would have lost Knight probably. Yeah. And it feels when you look at the way that linebacker ended up going, and that I have a feeling he would have come off the board before 81 would be one of the things that they would have lost.
And then you know what happens? So like, let's say they take Ratledge overnight. Well, then they just take Bear Carter in round 3. And so then round 4, right, you're looking at like Jack Sawyer. All right, so now you have Jack Sawyer, you have Jack Simon, I think is that one linebacker. But also like something I learned about Al is stack linebacker and outside linebacker are very different positions with very little crossover. And so Carter and Knight do completely opposite things. So that was another thought there. And Knight was like the only off-ball linebacker they saw.
Yeah. And what you also lost is a defensive tackle, a 3-tech, and a safety, because they didn't end up getting one. And that's probably, had they not taken Knight in the second round, that good chance. I mean, maybe it was Ratledge, but if they were that high on Fairchild, if they're telling the truth about he was the guy that they were looking at when they went down there initially, then maybe that's what they missed out on, is it would have been a safety or a defensive tackle in that second round.
All right. Let's pull this one out for Blake Perkins. Any free agents still in the market you guys think could make an impact on this team? I know a guard was a conversation piece before the draft, but what about now? I mean, I said this the other day. I kind of like what's happening in the offensive line. I love that they're just like that. The competition has a lot of different types of players and opportunity, and they're opening it, for everybody to be a part of it. I wouldn't mind throwing another name in the mix. I wouldn't have a problem with a Dalton Reisner showing up tomorrow, and just be like, hey, what's it hurt at this point? Outside of the fact there's only so many snaps to go around in camp. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't anticipate that, but I wouldn't have a problem with adding a few more names to the list of who they have there right now, and just best man wins.
Maybe they go get Justin Simmons, the safety.
I prioritize safety.
Yeah, we could watch Charlie chug a beer. That didn't have an expiration date. That deal where if they signed him, he would chug one.
All right. And maybe let's see. I think I might have had one more here. Let's see. Here we go. From Paul C. They have guard and 2 linebackers, cutting Pratt and Volson, get a Trey extension done. So maybe let's Pratt's gonna happen. Like, has it happened yet? I feel like I'm waiting. Like, when is that like a release? Is there going to be a video? I don't know where we end with that. But obviously that's happening. Volson certainly is going to be one of those that is interesting, because they're going to give him a shot. If he can't live up to the optimism that Scott Peters had for him, they're going to cut him at the very least, he'd be hoping to come back on a league minimum type number. But that 3.75 is a big old one if you're not the starter and you have all those people that are competing in there. I mean, there's just too many guys that can be backup guards. If I feel like he needs to win the job to keep that number. That's
Cody Ford. That's Cody Ford money right there.
That's Cody Ford money. That's it. That's not who you are. And so if he shows up and, man, like Scott Peters got it out of him and he just has a barnstorming camp, I could see them keeping him and paying him that because they don't want to take a chance of losing him. But other than that, they at the very least would be cutting him and try to bring him back on a PS or onto the 53 on like a $1 million deal or something like that.
Yeah, what's that leash look like? If he's not competitive early in camp, do they just go ahead and cut bait right away, or do they give him as much? Because you mentioned it, it's going to be hard to get snaps for all these guys, and if it does look like he's falling behind early, do they play it out till the end, or do they just part ways very quickly?
I think he plays. I think he's here till final cut. I mean, he's here at the end.
He's a 80 snaps in week 3 preseason type guy.
Yeah, you know what?
Exactly.
He's got to do it again, just like he did. It won him a job one time.
Yeah.
He can make him $3.75 million this time if he can go up and whip up on some people in one of those. Don't Jackson Carmen this thing. And it was always like watch somebody just fail their way down every single preseason, take a step down lower. But Volson has tended to rise up at that time of year, so maybe he can. And Trey extension,
Mr. August.
I know people. I think people maybe get tired of us talking about Trey all the time. I do too. I don't want.
Same.
I don't want this. I do think that it's important to just touch on the Trey situation here real quick, though. And that is, look, I think the lines have kind of been drawn. Like, no trades. You're here this year, Trey, like in whatever capacity that ends up being. And the Bengals have a little more leverage to kind of say, take it or leave it with whatever the deal is, or play it out. And that's conflict is coming because the other options are all gone. This is it. He's here. He's a Bengal this year in whatever capacity that is. And they're going to have to work out what they want that to look like. If Trey wants it to look like making more money, if he doesn't, but they have set their future. And so the idea of Trey getting multiple years and all kinds of guarantees, it certainly doesn't feel great right now with Miles Murphy and Shemar Stewart, 2 first-round picks here on rookie deals.
Do we want to go to? You want to go do more questions or?
No, let's do Growler. Let's
do Growler
we had to
Bet?
wrap up where the Growler Bet. We did the Growler Bet the other day. Let's wrap it and we'll get out of here.
Yeah. Well, we had our game too, and
We did.
I mean, Charlie, I would rather just skip that segment because Paul crushed us. If you
Oh, in the
guys
game?
weren't,
Yeah.
yeah, the draft position game. If you guys weren't watching, we each drafted 3 positions we thought they could take. If they took that position in the first round, it was 10 points. Second round 7, and then third round 6, fourth round 5, etc. Paul had edge, linebacker, and cornerbacker, so he got 10, 7, and 5 points for 22. I had O-line, so I got 6 and 4, and I got 3 for the running back for a total of 13. And Charlie had defensive tackle, tight end, and wide receiver. So sorry, Charlie, no points there.
What do you like to say, Paul? Ooh, so close.
Ooh, so
but
close.
it wasn't close at all.
As
for
feels good.
the
If you wanna
Growler
play,
Bet,
you want to win.
yeah, exactly. We had 4 people pick Shemar Stewart as the pick. It was
the
Wade.
Growler Bet was pick the player and the
time.
exact time of the pick as the tiebreaker.
And a bonus if you could pick the commercial, that because we knew they would go to commercial when the Bengals picked.
And they did.
And they did. And 2 people nailed the commercial, Geico. So the 4 people that had Shemar Stewart as the pick: Wade Harwood, Mark Waltemath, Caleb Musselman. I wonder if he's Coach Musselman's son. I know Coach Musselman, where's he at, USC now? He's a big Bengal fan. And then Tony Lunt. And we didn't write down the time of the pick. We were busy tweeting stuff out, but we do have the Bengals tweet announcing the pick. And the Bengals tweet announcing the pick came at exactly 10 o'clock on the nose. And Wade Harwood predicted Shemar Stewart at 10:02 with a Geico commercial running. That is a pretty damn good guess, and he is our winner. Caleb Musselman had 9:56. He was only 4 minutes off, but Wade Harwood is our winner.
Man, Musselman, so close. That is tough.
Yeah.
What a run for Wade. So Wade, let us know. Send the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. Send us a note there, and we'll make sure we get you hooked up with a bar bill at one of our live shows. It can be the one this Tuesday, 5 o'clock down at BetMGM, Nation Kitchen and Bar down at the Banks. Mike Potts will be there in Nation hanging out. We'll be talking draft and everything that went down, and whatever else you guys want to do there too. We'll be giving away stuff. You could have some cookies. Charlie, how many cookies? Are you anticipating a multi-cookie sit down?
That is the Growler Bet, actually. Cookies eaten.
Yeah.
No.
They have cookies right
17
now. Key
from
lime
Steve
cookies.
Oh, those look nice. I love the key lime cookies. Where'd you get those? What are those?
It is, what is the brand? It's Benton's brand. I just happened to open the cabinet after dinner tonight looking for a little snack, and my wife had bought those at the grocery, and I had a couple before we came on the air.
Oh, I'm jealous. I'm going to go get some cookies myself. Boys, this was great. Another Dey Night in the books. Certainly appreciate it. And we will, I guess I'll see you guys on Tuesday, and hopefully those of you watching, everybody that popped into the stream, ring the bell, get the notifications, all that stuff. We're pumping the YouTube page full of content over not just draft, but we'll keep going throughout the whole offseason. You know you want that OTAs live stream. You know you want that. Maybe it'll be coming your way. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good night, everybody.